In my lifetime, I've witnessed incredible progress for all of humanity. The facts show that there's been an increase in prosperity, a decrease in disease, improvements in education, healthcare, and even human and civil rights. But I've also seen us repeating the same mistakes over and over again. I remember Rodney King and the protests and the riots that followed his beating by police. I remember Michael Brown's death at the hands of a policeman and the subsequent protests and riots. Now we mourn George Floyd, and we're in the middle of protests and riots. I've seen this play out on both large and small stages. Anger, violence, some platitudes from woke CEOs, and the same dribble from the same voices of the left and of the right. But here's a question. How do we not return to normal? How do we not allow complacency to set in? In my lifetime, I've done some stupid things. I've crossed the line of proper judgment. I've crossed the line of the law. I've been caught speeding. I've been caught doing worse by the police. But every time I have told them, hey, I'm guilty. What I did was stupid. That I was sorry. And you know what? They'd let me go. I've never been arrested. I've never been sent to jail. Why did police officers do that? Not once or twice, but probably a dozen times in my 58 years of life. Because I was polite? Because I was contrite? Because I was white? And specifically, a white male? George Floyd presented a counterfeit $20 bill for a pack of cigarettes, and he was arrested, he was handcuffed, and he died due to the actions of more than one police officer. I created and used a fake driver's license to buy alcohol and cigarettes when I was 18 years old. I was stopped by a police officer outside the liquor store. I asked for forgiveness, and he took the beer, and he took the cigarettes and the fake ID, and he told me not to do it again. He did not handcuff me, and he did not choke me to death. Why? Ahmaud Arbery was jogging. He was chased down and killed with a shotgun by two men. If I told you that Ahmaud Arbery was white and that the two men were African American, what would your response be? Don't rationalize. Be honest. You'd be shocked for two reasons. First, that never happens. And second, because you subconsciously acknowledge that institutional racism exists. I have 3 sons. My wife and I have 3 sons. My friend and colleague Darnell Self has 3 sons and a daughter. Our families are alike in many ways. Each of our families spend a lot of time together, communicate openly. We're extremely close, raised in faith, focused upon education and living a life to make a positive difference in society. Do you think my wife Colleen and I worry that our sons will be jogging and gunned down like Ahmaud Arbery because of the color of their skin? No, we do not. Do you think that I fear that they'll be pulled over by police and treated like Sandra Bland? No, I do not. But Darnell and Tracy Self do, and they have a reason to, because institutional racism, it exists. Law enforcement and civic leaders and elected leaders, and quite frankly, every citizen needs to see that this is not about guilt. Slavery existed. That will never change. This is not about science either. White people and black people are genetically the same. We have the same biological potential to think and to feel and live. This is about right and wrong. This is about fairness. This is about equal treatment under the law. You cannot give the benefit of the doubt to a white person and not to a person of color. You cannot decide someone is evil or depraved or guilty because of the color of their skin. You cannot condemn them to death for doing something, even if it's wrong and illegal, just because you view them differently, or as someone that isn't better or looking like you. When my white friends discuss privilege, there's usually a disagreement because, well, many were born poor, because they worked hard, they made a better life for themselves, because their families never owned slaves. Honestly, I have thought those thoughts and I have felt those feelings in my lifetime, but it misses the point. It misses the reality. We are white, and that means that white society looks at us without the same contempt and condemnation as it does for people of color. We could pursue the American dream of advancement. Not easy, but permitted. The same equality of opportunity is not true for people of color. Now, this is not about affirmative action. This is about how we view people and therefore how we treat people every day in every situation. I was blind, but now I see. People say, I am not a racist. That is deluded self-talk. It is simple-minded self-justification. It is a rationalization. Racism is not an intellectual exercise. It is how we immediately react when we see someone that looks different than us when they're walking towards us on the street. Do we stiffen? Do we cross to the other side? That is why police officers kill people of color in circumstances where they do not kill people that are white. The animal part of our being has us react to things that we perceive as different with either fright, fight, or flight. When we see someone that appears in different ways than ourselves, maybe they dress differently than us, the color of their skin, we make an immediate, an instant assessment. Are they friend, are they foe? But while we cannot stop this biological, this immediate response, we must recognize and control it. We must control it because we're not animals. We are humans. God gave us reason. You must recognize that what you're feeling is what it is, how animals behave. We must all use reason to gain control of ourselves as humans. We must not judge by the color of skin, but by the content of character, to paraphrase the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. When you think like an animal, you act like an animal. You immediately assume another person's intention or his or her character. That person intends to harm me. That person is evil. Seriously, stop just for a moment. Think about this. Let's move past the crisis today, the social crisis today. Let's recall how many people felt about people from the Middle East after 9/11, or better said, people who looked like what they thought people should look like from the Middle East. I say that because, do you remember the racist who killed a Sikh Hindu man because he thought he was from the Middle East? Let us remember also, in our own history, how we felt about not only Japanese people, but Japanese Americans after Pearl Harbor. We put them in internment camps. And of course, let's remember how we viewed Asians and Asian Americans at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic earlier this year. Because it started in Wuhan, China, people were attacked, they were physically accosted. We blamed based upon bias, the judgment by the color of skin, not by the content of character. When you hear calls to mobilize, to strategize, and organize to get out the vote, I'm going to tell you something. That is very practical. It is very important. Yes, if you haven't, you need to fill out the census survey. You need to register to vote, and you need to vote. But I am calling on all of us to do it differently. This is not about putting on the jersey of one political party and voting with it or voting against the other political party. I'm challenging all of us to focus on the issues. If you want social justice, if you want criminal justice reform, if you want economic opportunity, then you need to spend the time and know where candidates stand on critical issues. Quite frankly, if you do not believe that we have proper laws, then you need to get involved in ballot proposals to change and create new laws. It is also critically important that I profess that law enforcement is rightly hailed as heroic. What law enforcement officers do every single day is heroic. They put their lives on the line to protect our lives. This is why we hold them to the highest standard, a heroic standard. That is why reform in policing techniques is required in our society. But more important than any other message I have today, do not go back to normal. Do not allow complacency to settle back in. For more than 48 years, PPLSI has fought every day for equal justice for all. In fact, our founder, Harlan Stonecipher, created the name Legal Shield in 1997 in response to the brutal assault of Abner Louima by New York City police. Every breath we take is drawn to fight for liberty, equality, opportunity, and justice for everyone. We are not in a business that waits for a tragedy and then pretends to be woke, making grandiose statements and issuing platitudes that end up changing nothing. Our Legal Shield and ID Shield memberships and our business opportunity change everything. The only question is how many people we are protecting and empowering today. That is a question for every associate. That is the question for your servant CEO. That is the only question that leads to real change. We must lead the change. It starts with us and it extends to everyone that we meet. We must individually and collectively decide that love will triumph over hate, that unity will triumph over division, justice over abuse, equality over discrimination, freedom over subjugation, and opportunity over despair. My friends, together, and only together, we will go higher. Together, we will and we must lead the change.